Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to another edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We're glad to have you once again to discuss on what is making news in Cameroon and the world at large. This day, we are going to be looking at the wave of violence in the southwest and northwest region. We know that there was an incident in Momo division that took lives, and later on in Santa around Matazen that also took lives. And yesterday, there was a very, very sad situation in Mautu. And also knowing that lives were taken in Ndian division with the hands of some laborers chopped off, we this day going to be looking at what is wrong and whether it is time for a resolute end to the conflict. What will have to be done? We're going to be discussing this very salient topic with our panelists who are already in the house. Dr. Nick Ngwanyam is a social entrepreneur and a politician. He's in the house with us. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much. It's very worrying that there's so much killing going on, so we really need to talk about it. It's very important. It's sad that at the beginning of the year, we were looking forward to a good 2021, but we are starting on a wrong foot.
Okay. Also with us is Andrin Atemibako, who is in the house with us. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much, televiewers, and thank you very much, Mr. Kumliona. Thank you, my other panelists who is on the other side. Thank you very much.
We are waiting the arrival of Dr. Aku, John Aku, who should be on his way, maybe tied down by traffic. We hope he joins us in the course of the program. But also participating all the way from Hamburg in Germany is Paddy Asanga. Good evening, Paddy, and welcome. Is Paddy there? Good evening and welcome. Seemingly, we've not succeeded in getting through to Paddy Asanga. Dr. Nick, when we read through the events that are ripping through these two regions, southwest and northwest regions, it's quite preoccupying.
Yes, like I said, evil is something that keeps spiraling. It's like falling down the pit, you know. When evil starts, it starts small and it just spirals and goes down the pit deeper and deeper. And what we need to do is to stop loss, to stop that. But if we just let things just continue the way things are going, and if we continue with this blame game and so on, we'll only continue to see more and more of these terrible activities going on, more killings, more maimings, no more burnings, and what have you. It looks like people want to inflict the worst of injuries on others, and they get some kicks out of it. They feel good. They feel good when you inflict injury on others, and we should realize that whether we are killing, whether it's the military that are dying, or is the civilians that are dying, or is the armors themselves that are dying, it's not helping us in any way when we actually know what solutions we should be bringing on the table and getting these things solved and done with. Because if we don't do that and just keep killing ourselves, it doesn't help us in any way. We just get more and more blood on our hands.
Yes, but with these increased attacks and killings, it's scary for the population of the southwest and northwest region, because one never knows what happens next, and people are not assured.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing better than having security. There's nothing better than having peace, because nothing else works in the absence of peace. And then, you know, people in that region, they can't even sleep. You can't go out of your house. Even when you are in your house, you are not safe. They can come pick you from your house and kill you. You are at work. They can come pick you from your job site and kill you. You are on your way to church. They will pick you and kill you, or just take you and go torture you and you know, ask for ransom or things like that. It's not funny.
Okay, Andrin, did you foresee this trend of events in 2021 after what happened in 2020?
Mr. Liu, we had made some analysis when this conflict began that it would take at least 10 years before people start thinking on exactly what measures to be taken and to be done to see that the conflict comes to an end. You know, since it looks as if it's a try by error that this conflict is the nature of the conflict. It's like try and error, and until parties begin to start behaving as mature individuals, that is when you can start having a way forward and a solution to the current ongoing crisis. So things like this, we will keep having them, because when I began looking at I studied the psychology of the individuals who have picked up arms and the both side of the government as well. You see, at the end of the day, these are not well organized and trained individuals whereby we say we know them from their background history, their credibility, their integrity, their chain of activities. These individuals, I will put in the way I'll put it is people you cannot count on them. You cannot have a proper background check to see that these individuals are people who can really hold up to the responsibility of a society. So when you have an armed conflict in the hands of people like these unscrupulous individuals who have in their own way of thinking, and it's not like it's in the interest of the population or the region, so to say, where we have the conflict. So it makes it very difficult, because at the end of the day, when you begin to give your support in the hands of such people like this, these are the results you get. Because I would not tell you, we don't have camps or we don't have schools where I would say that these armed separatist fighters actually have been through, or proper training they have been through. So you will always have this, and the fact that they don't have funds, it's not like Dangote putting up a wall who is financially viable to support the war. No, these are individuals by default have financial problems, by default have no how will I put it, no work, no proof of work to put on the table to show, whereby people can say, okay, we trust you with this power, we know that you'll be able to deliver, because we have seen what you have been able to do even before the crisis. But at the end of the day, who is going to support the war? The common man is going to support the war. And that was what I said in the beginning. Because they don't have sponsors, the people claiming even in the diaspora, how much money can you send to hold up a war? War is very expensive. You need to really be a financial giant. It's absolutely like governments that actually can sponsor wars, or billionaires in different parts of the world. But looking at the current situation, you realize that the people need to depend on the commoners, the locals, the people of those two regions, in order for them to keep the war going at the expense of those people. And that is why you realize that the war now has turned against the people, the very people who supported the war in the beginning. Like I said, Mr. Leo, before, that it was never on the table that stopped this war. Even at the beginning, when we started, we saw how the armed separatist fighters were killing a lot of military. A lot of people supported it because it had not turned against them. At that period, we did not hear stop the war. Today, we are hearing it is because the masses are now being affected. The people who in the beginning gave their support, the war now has now turned against them. Now they have now become the major threat. That is why you are getting this topic today on the table, that stop the war. The question here is, why was the war in the first place? That is a very pertinent question. That is where you come to realize that there must be a balance between the youth population and the old. The Western culture is sweeping away the older generation. Let me put it that way, because in Africa here, or in Cameroon, so to say, we don't have old people's home. So the only home for old people is the government, where you have the few old people who have been able to hold power. I don't want to let power go, because power is something which is very delicate. By the time you give it into the hands of a young man, you get the kind of results you are finding. You are already finding it down there in the northwest and in the southwest. The power is in the hands of young people, and you can see how the power is being abused. So sometimes,
what are you saying? Are you saying that young people should not be given?
I am saying there must be a balance, because a society where older people are kept away has no vision. Because whatever a young man does, that's why it says that a young man has strength while an older man has a vision, or no, rather wisdom. So there must be a balance between these two. That's why we always say that, or we used to say that, it is also preferable that sometimes the older people must not be in front in order to lead. They should also mentor. When you put in a successor, you stand behind to build that successor so that the successor becomes an experienced individual even though he's young. So that connection must be, and that's the connection that we are losing.
Okay.
And that is why you feel the resistance where the old people too don't want to let go power because that balance is not there.
Okay, Dr. Nick Ngwanyam, early this year we saw the attacks in Momo Division that claimed the lives of some military officials and that of my classmate. And we also saw the attacks in Matazem that claimed the lives of some military officials and some civilians. And we've had the attacks in Dian Division where an estate manager was killed. The hands of some laborers chopped off. Is this, to some extent, a change in the tactics, and what for?
It's very unfortunate that we're witnessing all these problems, and if I had any advice to give to the government is that we can keep a catalog of these things. They're not going to stop. We're going to have more, and we'll hear more gruesome stuff. And just counting the dead on both sides is not it. Keeping a balance sheet, that's not it. The problem is that we have a problem and we refuse to solve the problem, and therefore, like a cancer, it's growing. And if you have a cancer that stops small and you do nothing about it and it's growing, then there's no reason to be surprised that it is growing and getting worse and causing a lot more damage. That's the bottom line. That's the natural progression of a cancer. That's the natural progression of a problem that is not solved. That's the natural progression of anything that is left alone. You have erosion that is coming under your foundation. You do nothing about it. Then tomorrow you're surprised that your walls are coming down. No, you don't have to be surprised because the erosion was there. You saw it. It was small and it continued to increase and the gorges became larger.
Yeah,
and you did nothing about it.
Dr. Nick, you are speaking in parables. Who saw what problem and refused to solve it?
The solution of the Anglophone problem, as I've said before, this problem was supposed to be solved squarely and dealt with at the major national dialogue. But that major national dialogue left that problem unsolved and took off on a tangent, and therefore we are dealing with a boil that has not been incised. That's the bottom line. And at the major national dialogue, we came up with things, and we've been running after chasing the shadows and saying this is it, the antelope is going this way. No, it's not the antelope. We left the antelope and we're going after shadows. So until we do the right thing, let us do the right thing and solve this problem. There are no two ways to it. We can go up, we can come down. Let us solve this problem.
So you see, the major national dialogue was supposed to solve this problem.
Yeah.
How did it fail in solving this problem? Are you saying that government has made no clear efforts to wanting to bring the fighting to an end?
Government makes an effort to bring the fighting to an end, but it makes an effort without actually looking at the situation, understanding it, and doing it caque sur la table, as they say. It should not be an arm twisting effort. It should be an effort really meant to solve the problem. Because if we come to the table and we are dealing with truth and love, and we ask God for wisdom, and we follow that wisdom, and we let everybody talk, and we are genuinely looking for a solution, the solution will be there. But when we come to the table trying to be smarter than the other party, because when you're in a deal with anybody, it should always be a win-win. But the government came to that discussion with a win-loss agenda.
Yeah, I don't understand you when you say the government came with. Who is the government?
The government is those people that we have put there to look after us. That's it. But you put people there to look after you, and they are looking more after themselves and other agenda than looking after you. That's the problem.
Dr. Nick, you speak a lot in parables this time. Yes,
okay,
when you say the government came.
Okay, who is the government? Is the government some god?
Government is you and I now.
Correct. So
we went
there. And the bottom line is this: actually, if the government had let, His Eminent Christian Cardinal Tumi hold his meetings with the Anglophones, they would have come up with a reasonable solution. And of course, that solution was a federation. Though I'm sitting here, and you and I, I've been preaching confederation, and at the Swiss talks, I will continue to say confederation. Look for that solution that would bring. Look for that thing that will really bring the solution, and we'll have peace, at least please the people.
Can one side provide the solution? Because seemingly you are only indexing the government. I've not heard you tell the other side to also.
It is the government that has the yam and the knife. It's the government that has the yam and the knife. If the government wants the problem to end tonight, it will end tonight.
Okay. Now, do you have the impression that the key actors are worried about the killings? Do they show signs of being tired of the killings? We see killings on both sides.
Well, Mr. Liu, we today are living in a society where killing is no longer an issue, where people have now become used to people being dead or being killed every day, which is a very sad society in which we are living today. To see that morality is no longer the question of the day. So it's quite a very painful and a hideous experience to realize that these are the kind of societies in which we are living today, and the society which our children are going to grow up to face with. You see, but it will take our understanding to realize that a nation is not built either by a government or by one man. A nation is built by the collective joint effort of every member in that country. Now, in the case of what we have there down there in the northwest and southwest, you see, when people create problems whereby it's bigger than them and also bigger than the government, it's very difficult for you to tell the government to go and solve the problem. How would the government solve the problem? One party says we want to separate. So how then does the government solve the problem at that level? So it becomes very complicated. And these are some of the strategies whereby I will keep citing an external hand in that conflict down there, because there are problems when they come to you, they are equal to you and they are solvable. You can solve them. But when you start dealing with a problem like this, where it's bigger than you, at one point you start turning around and seizing the opportunity that problem has now created instead of solving the problem. And that's exactly what is happening down there. So for me, the way I look at it is in this light. The Anglophone problem is not the armed separatist fighters that we have today on ground. Those ones just sprang up in the late 2016 and early 2017, that we had the revolution of the consortium and the lawyers and the teachers that were being hijacked. But that was not the Anglophone crisis. The Anglophone crisis has always been the pending one that we have been talking between the northwest and the southwest to start with. The two parties that makes the two English-speaking region have not yet come together. They have not come at a consensus. They have not agreed. They have always lived in disagreement. And these are some of the things that we should always declare. So the Grand National Dialogue was to build a platform in which, whereby these two parties can merge by, like the terminology a lot of people used to say, let us learn to live together by living apart. So the Grand National Dialogue was not addressing the armed separatist fighters on ground, because to start with, it was very clear when the head of state said he was not going to negotiate with the terrorists. That is what he said. So the Grand National Dialogue could not be insinuated that it was to solve the armed conflict. No, let us be clear on that. So this armed conflict, like I'm saying, Mr. Liu, it's a situation whereby it's bigger even than the people of the northwest and southwest, because it has gone out of proportion, equally as it's bigger than the government. How long has the government been fighting this war? How much logistic has the government been displacing down there for mobility of all its military force? That's a lot of money. So that means that there is absolutely an armed conflict going on, whereby one party cannot win another party. There is resistance on both sides. So you come now to realize that when you live in a society like this, whereby people who fight and claim that they want change, and then the masses go to support them and do not understand the hidden agenda, Mr. Leo, it will shock you that when these two regions, if for example, today we say, all right, let us separate, and now the English regions now are giving an independent, independent. Do you know the amount of fight and conflict that will take place down there? Among political parties to start with, among the separatist fighters who are abroad, among the separatist fighters who are on ground, among the other political actors who are, it will added now to the northwest and the southwest, it will be a chaos. It will take us like 50 years, like what you see in Tripoli, what you see, I'm referring to Libya, what you see today in Iraq, and many other places when a group of people say we want change. And they do not, the masses do not see the trap which is coming ahead, and they fall in for, and before you know, to get stability in those countries, that is Libya today. Even America is above them to settle it has now instead become a real ground now for terrorists. That is also Iraq till today. Since 2001 that George Bush entered Iraq, till today Iraq has not been stable. So these are the kind of things that Cameroonians should foreview when people are calling for change. What kind of change do we need? Like I still said, Mr. Leo, in order for us to work, there must be a balance between the older generation and the younger generation, because at the end of the day, it has only been in the efforts of the younger generation to sustain those that are in power, and which is a simple truth. So if the younger generation or the younger, how will I put it, Cameroonians that makes about 70% are the youths, have been playing the role to keep these elderly people in power, it means that there must be a form of mutuality. You don't enter into power, instead of you giving, you want to take. You should be able to relate back with the people, and the younger ones that you have been using their energy to keep you up there. So that relationship must be, Mr. Leo. So the war you find down there, Mr. Leo, it's a very complex one, because you are dealing with people who have different ideologies, people with different nationalities. To even start with, many of them have different nationalities. You do a background check on many of those that are in the diaspora, they have nothing to show for it. It's this war that has made a lot of them rich. Before then, they were just nobody. So you look at the kind of people that you want to entrust, they come and tell you that we want to separate. Look at the people who first say they want to separate. If you give them that place, what would they do out? What would they make out of it? Those are the kind of questions you need to be asking yourself.
Don't ask me any questions. I just want to react to a couple of things that Mr. Bako has said. Mr. Bako, may I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Can you tell us what President Paul Biya told Mr. Mo Ibrahim in Paris? What did he say about the Anglophone problem? Because you are giving a definition of the Anglophone problem here that gave me gooseskins. Now you are changing the face of the thing. You are interpreting the Anglophone problem to be a problem between the Northwest and the Southwest. I'm afraid.
No,
let's not argue about it.
If is it a question? Can I answer the question?
No, okay, just tell me.
Right, okay.
Tell me what President Paul Biya told Mo Ibrahim in Paris. Tell the world.
No, that is not. That's
no. I want us to come, because we don't come back. If we don't define the thing.
Maybe I omitted something by saying that the Anglophones have also cried for marginalization.
Okay, now let me just take over, because when that's what happens with history. When we start twisting history,
no, there's nothing twisted.
Then the problem becomes too difficult again.
There is nothing twisted there. I will tell you why there's nothing twisted.
No, wait, don't bother. Let me just talk. Listen, the Anglophone problem. If there are people there who don't understand it, go and read His Excellency Aboem Achoi's letter that he wrote, an open letter that he wrote. You would understand the Anglophone problem. If you want more information, go and read the letter written by all the bishops to the president. You would understand it. Then, when Mr. Biya was talking to His Excellency President Paul Biya was talking to Mr. Mo Ibrahim in Paris during the Paris Peace Conference, he clearly demonstrated. He talked about the history of Cameroon and how the two Cameroons came about. And he tells the world that they have been trying to bring this Anglophone component to be like the Francophone component, and that it has been difficult. That is the Anglophone problem. It is that desire to assimilate, that desire to marginalize, that desire to coax people, to change them so that they begin to reason in one way. That's the bottom of the Anglophone problem, and it starts when you kill the federation. You kill the federation, you kill their economic potentials, then you try to change a lot of things, you downgrade the English, you kick people around and so on. That is the Anglophone problem, and the best solution to solving the Anglophone problem is solve the Anglophone problem. Solve it, face it squarely, go back and put that thing the way it was supposed to be. Now, once you are talking about, when you see this other thing that is rearing its head, which is the problem between the northwest and the southwest region, those are just outshoots of an unfortunate situation where politicians play these things of divide and rule so that they can have bread for themselves, so that they go to the person who has the power, and then they create little misunderstandings amongst people of the northwest, southwest. Even when we talk about people in the southwest, even amongst them there's no agreement. You go to people in the northwest, even amongst them, because now you have SDF in there, CPDM in there, and we are boxing each other. It's just like in the rest of the country. It's human nature. So when we go down that route, we are never going to solve the problems. And I agree with you that the war has changed its face, because as the war was dragging on, the concept or the phenomenon called dogs of war phenomenon set in, and then people who had no jobs and so on with the gun, they became rich and started to make themselves some money. Even people on the government bench also started to have some benefits from it and so on. So this war is becoming just so crazy, and someone needs to stand up and face the music. And the government has the capacity to solve this problem by doing a proper dialogue. It's true that people had said cessation. The initial cry was not cessation. People had been looking for a genuine solution to the Anglophone problem, but it's the recalcitrance of the government that pushed people to extremes. But if someone were to sit down genuinely, and the government comes over and the separatists come over, call them separatists or whatever, they come over, there will be a middle ground to which people would accept, and life would continue. So let's not make it more difficult than it sounds.
If you permit me to say, that's one side of the story. That's a version you have given, but you should not also forget. We shouldn't deep down into history, otherwise we may lose the context of what is happening today in Cameroon. But what I want to say is that if you look from that 1961 up to 1972, when he will talk about the Indeli and Foncha, even way back then, you come to realize that another version says that the people of the Southwest in the 1960s were dragged in. They did not want to. They were dragged in. And when you had the East government, and then you have the West government, the people of the Southwest were cut off from the mainstream. And they also were being marginalized at that point. So what I'm saying here is that what we today may have been complaining, for example, there are one fraction of the people of the Anglophone region who had also suffered that in the hands of their own brother. And that is where the ideology came, that let us learn to live together by living apart. That's why they would not want to have anything more to say with the other side. So I'm just saying, I'm not refusing the part of the assimilation, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying here is that way back, that's why I don't want to go so far. If I go so far, we'll be probably going out of the subject. So that's what I was trying to say, that there is a problem which has been, and the Grand National Dialogue was, if we go in the way of Cardinal Tumi, that's looking at that version that you are trying to bring up. And let me be honest with you that the reason why the recent gathering, the Cardinal Tumi has been calling for the All Anglophone Conference, it never took place, is only because the elites of the Southwest refused.
And not the government.
And not the government.
Okay.
Refused. No.
It's not the government.
I'm telling you.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. So you have to understand that when people already have a history in their mind and already know what you are coming up with, because we know that Cardinal Tumi had always stood for federation. You understand? And that is where the concept of secession comes from. That to be honest, I'm being very honest with you, because I've had certain individuals who are taking a place in a meeting where Cardinal Tumi was. I'm telling you the simple truth.
And
Whereby
Tumi said that
it was this. Listen
was
to me.
discussed that after
The
federation.
discussion was that if it is not federation, the aspect of going back to zero option, which is a secession, it's coming from the aspect that if it does not go back as it used to be in 1961, let's secede.
Okay, no. I want to get something clear. You say it is the Southwest elites who were completely against any such move by Kadatumi.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Kumleonard, and I think that it is. If we have to solve some problems, we have to be very frank with knowing where the bone of contention is, because you may be fighting for something and you think that this other man is fighting for it, but that man is not fighting for it. And he makes it difficult for you to get what you want to get, because he knows the position, if you get it, where he would be, and that's the position he does not want to take. So what I'm saying here, Mr. Leo, that all Anglophone conference, the all Anglophone conference never took place, not because the government refused, because some people made the government to understand that we are not part of it and we don't want this meeting to hold. And that is the even more reason why the meeting never took place in Boya. I'm telling you the simple truth. I'm not saying because the government comes on media and say the meeting is not going to hold. I'm telling you what happens underground, and that's exactly what happened. I have, how will I put it, I have data evidence and witnesses on meetings whereby it has been orchestrated by this same Cardinal Tumi, whereby, let me just say this, Mr. Leo, Fon VE was supposed to be there. When he called that meeting, the other chiefs that went there said, we will not take part in this meeting when our own elders are not here. And that's how they walked out of that meeting. So the All Anglophone Conference was going to take the joint efforts of the people of the Southwest, then it will hold. If the people of the Southwest say we are not part of it, that is why it never took place, not because the government stopped it. And this is very important for the people to understand that we come from a very long history. Like I gave you the example from 1961 up to 1972, there's a very horrific experience. And this is what the people of the Southwest don't want to go through anymore. And that is why you realize that. I'm not surprised that a lot of people already understand what I'm trying to say, but that is why you realize that it's difficult for us to really obtain the kind of balance that we are looking in the English region, because when you don't have two brothers who don't agree, it makes a third party having advantage over you people. If the two Anglophone regions came together, trust me, the government would have stood up.
Yeah, but
in a lot of things.
I don't know whether you are very comfortable with what Ebako is saying, because your history of what we are facing today is completely different from what Ebako is saying.
No, Ebako says some things which are true, in the sense that, you know, our brothers from the Southwest, I guess they were very traumatized by the Northwesterners when they were in power, for some odd reason, I don't know. But they feel traumatized. And it's very unfortunate that it happened that way. But that said, that's not the reason why I should throw out the baby and the wash water. And, you know, when we were talking, when I crafted the concept of the Confederation, it took care of that fear, in the sense that when you go back to the Confederate state of West Cameroon, what we call decentralization now is not bad, but you should create the decentralization. So we were supposed to break down the nation at two levels, okay? You first break it up. This of a centralized government, you break up it into East Cameroon and West Cameroon. Then you now cause this decentralization to happen in West Cameroon, and cause the decentralization to happen in East Cameroon, and then you elect your SDOs, DOs, and governors, and you will not see all this duplication. You see now they have so many people doing whatever, and there's so much confusion. The lines of power will be very clean and clear, and things and you know, then we will change our education, change a lot of these things, and the country will move forward. We are just beating around and around in circles and arguing and doing things that are not going to help us, and it just feels so painful.
It's so painful, but I stay with you, Dr. Nick Ngwanyam, to note that whether people are falling in the camp of the separatists or the military, we are all Cameroonians.
That's right. I mean, there's no need for all this bloodletting. It's really helping nobody that people are just dying like this. And in fact, I think the government and the separatists or whoever, they should pipe down. And I understand there is some Swiss talks in the corridor somewhere. Those Swiss talks should be encouraged so that people should come and sit at the table and look at these things squarely. Because if we don't, this thing is not going to end anytime soon. It's important that the Swiss talks should hold so that there's some truth on the table, some love on the table, some forgiveness on the table, and then a new path is designed for us. You know, it's just so unfortunate that that we are into this thing. The other day I was on another panel where we were talking about some things and arguing about certain things, and I think the fact that we don't do anything excellently in Cameroon. We don't do. I mean, just leave the Anglophone problems. Let's just look at Mr. Bako. I hope you're listening to me very well. Let's just look at Cameroon as a nation, a people, and so on. If you can cite two things that we do efficiently and effectively, it doesn't matter which field. Let me know one or two things that we are excellent at.
It's only drinking of beer.
We drink now. We drink very well.
That is the problem. That is the problem.
I'm going to church.
Yes. So even then, when you say excellence, you see, we come up with nothing. If we are using it as a measure, that as a people, as a government, we are not efficient or perfect at anything. And it was football when Miller and the Toffees used to play. We will hide behind that and then begin to make some noise in the world. But the football itself crumbled, and then it showed that the king was naked. You see, so it is our inefficiency in everything that is showing up also as inefficiency in solving the problems of this war. Take the issue of the ID card. We are so inefficient. See, we have a lot of 6-star generals, 5-star, 6-star commissioners, 6-star commissioners, 5-star commissioners, 4-star commissioners, police officers in their thousands. We have gendarmes starting from generals to colonels, to lieutenant colonels and captains and so on in their thousands. How many of them can read a fingerprint? How many? And we are and we have universities with professors in this, doctors in that, and we are unable. We are unable to do our own ID cards. And you have to go to Spain or to Germany or to France to sign a contract with a private body to identify you. So our own president is not even identified by us, it's identified by a foreigner. You see how weak we are? It is that weakness which translates in our inability to solve all these problems. And because we don't solve problems, we create more problems, some turbulence, to distort things and so on. And we say that is the problem. No, it's our inability to do things properly. And if anybody in Cameroon thinks I'm lying, we are on air now. That's the telephone there. Give us two things. Two! In the whole nation. It doesn't matter in which area, which field. We have, I don't know, whether 40 ministries. Go through all ministries. Give us just two activities that we carry perfectly. Is it rearing of fish? I mean, is it keeping of fish? Is it growing rice? Is it growing food? Is it construction of roads? Is it hospitals? Is it building? Tell me one thing or two that we are good at, and I will surrender.
Okay, we hear Paddy Asanga is online. This man is still Dr. Ako John Ako is still caught in traffic. He's not yet here. We hope he joins us. Paddy, good evening and welcome. Paddy Asanga, good evening and welcome.
It's frozen in the position of a witch.
I don't know whether Paddy is available. Can we have him on, please? Okay, he's gone. Now, but when we look at this, you look at the actors and the killings. The actors, everybody is taking their stance. Nobody is budging. It is the common man that is caught in the crossfire. Our classmate and colleague who died in Momo Division, she was just a civilian who was caught in an ambush that was set for fighters, that's the military, We've seen the situation in Mautu yesterday. We have innocent civilians who are also caught in the crossfire because surely the military will find itself in a place where they are looking for fighters. When you look at the attacks in Matazem, the military was targeted, but we have innocent civilians that were caught in the crossfire. Do those that are in this fight actually take into consideration the interests of the common man?
I would not say so, Mr. Liu, because if they had taken into consideration the position of the common man, they would not be. This would not have been the approach to put your complaint by carrying up weapons and then fighting with one another. You see, because at the end of the day, looking at it from a Pan-African point of view, we are all Cameroonians and we are all Africans, so we should do things that should be in the interest of building our nation and building our continent to start with. Now, what did I want to say, Mr. Liu? You see, but looking at the way it is, whereby the people do not have concern anymore for one another, I want to look at the census. You know, when we came together in the 1961 up till 1976, we had a census of the population in the entire country of 7.6 million. Now, in 2018, we had a census in the northwest and in the southwest, a population of 5 million, which means that the population in Cameroon, in all the regions too, have drastically increased of about 26 million Cameroonians today in Cameroon. Now, after the war, as the war was going on, we had about 600 internally displaced persons at that 2018 and 2019. About 600,000 internally displaced persons. We have 4 million people affected by this war. We have 437,500 internally displaced people at that 2018, but by 2019, 2020, it climbed up to 600 to 700,000 internally displaced persons. You have now about close to 600 people who are in people who are in need in host communities. We have about 330,000 other people in need, including myself and many others, Mr. Liu. And you have those that have been killed. So you look at the census of about 5 million people that made up the population in these two regions. At the point in which this war is escalating, we have lost a lot of human resources, whereby we don't have that population anymore that was growing in those regions anymore, Mr. Liu. And this is a very growing concern, whereby I believe on both sides they should be able to protect our human resources and understand that we need the energy of these people who are being killed. And as a matter of fact, the war has affected more children than any other person. Children are being affected in this war than any other group or age group of people. So I want to ask the question here is that the people who are on both sides that are absolutely carrying out the armed conflicts down there in these two regions, do they put into consideration the lives of the innocent? Because in the midst of a war, you can never take a neutral position because there are two parties that are fighting. So you can't take a neutral position because the war itself automatically will choose a position for you, and that is why it becomes very complicated, where we will keep having civilians, innocent people, children being caught up in this armed conflict. Keeping aside the almost about how many thousand, about 70,000 schools have been closed due to this war. Thousands of children that are not going to school. So you realize that at the end of the day, Mr. Liu, the war, it is too expensive, because not only are we losing human resources, we are also losing financial resources and many other resources that we are losing. So at the end of the day, the question here is, it is clear that the people who are fighting this war, whether in the side of the government or in the side of the separatist fighter, they are not putting the common man into consideration, because the ambas don't have ID card, they don't have uniform, they don't have mask where you can identify who is an amba. So any young man at a certain age, from 25 below down, you are a potential target. Or 25 to 30, you are a potential target. So you come to realize that, Mr. Liu, the zones are very unsafe. And where do we go from here? That becomes the major question, because getting the parties to talk has always been the challenge, and the other side, you don't even find who competent that you can call and say, okay, where do we go from here? Because they themselves do not agree. And I don't even want to believe that even in the side of the government, people do agree. So how do you manage a crisis like this when you have actors that do not even agree? So it becomes very complicated. Should we say we are going to be buffer zones where innocent civilians are going to stay? Because as a matter of fact, Mr. Liu, these killings will always, the random killings will always take place as long as the conflict continues.
Okay.
We'll keep having things like this.
Dr. Ako John Ako is here in the studio with us. We have to get your first reaction on the spiral of violent killings taking place in the southwest and northwest regions since the beginning of this year.
Yeah, I don't, maybe I'm not going to be so silent or different from those who are in the field. And one of the things which we need to do is that we are just 1 week from the beginning of the new year. And if we listen to the head of state on the 31st of December, he assured Cameroonians that there have been more collaboration than ever before in these two regions, and again, that everything indicates that peace is getting its place, and that the forces of law and order, in fact, he equally applauded the efforts of the military and those who are in charge to maintain law and order in these two regions. We are again not surprised that the head of state, by his same speech, equally recalled to Cameroonians that this war has equally cost enormously, not only financially, but the number of lives. Which was just embarrassing is that the head of state just settled again on one simple incident, the Kumba massacre. But now today we are talking of the Mautu massacre, around mile 29. We have equally talked of the killing which took place in Bengui. We are equally talking of the killings within 1 week that has taken place in Matazen, some few meters away from Santa, a lot of those other issues. And in all these instances, we were equally thinking that the head of state could equally come back to tell us that just 1 week after his speech, that the things are not going as he thought they were. Because if we go to make on the evaluation of a whole year, and you just pocket or pick up one instance like that in Kumba, it simply means that you are not ruling the nation, and that maybe you are not even in command, you are not even informed of what is going on within Cameroon. What it's equally, again, when we, those who are more concerned and more involved, because I said Southern Cameroonians, wherever they are, house at least more than the capacity they used to host in normal time, which means that every Cameroonian is surely paying a dime for, in fact, what the crisis had caused. But can we be sincere to ourselves? For those who come out most often than not to say the military had its place and that only force can bring order, we have said several times, you will still mind with me that when you cite examples of where weapons have never solved a problem, people will tell you that Cameroon is specific and that this is Cameroon and Cameroon must bring order. We spoke of this in 2016. It was said in 2017. We are now in 2021. I believe it is equally time for those who thought or those who were thinking that force can bring order to equally try to take into consideration the other recipe which we have proposed. We said sincere dialogue remains the way out of this particular crisis. And many others have been evaluating the measure of national dialogue, which some upheld or were holding as the only ground where peace can return to Cameroon, and there they manufacture what they were calling, in fact, from the laboratory of the measure of national dialogue, was what they called the special status, which all of us equally accepted that what was called the special status is simply a bag without a content. And then in an effort to fill the content, you remember that elections were held last December, and we have asked to what extent will this election solve the Anglophone crisis, and the results were just known before even they were carried out, that the CPDM won with outright majority. Is that the wish of the people? Do we need a representative assembly to solve the problem of a common man? Many will cry that the common man is suffering because they are not taken into consideration. There is no atmosphere of war in most cases that will consider the life of those whom we consider as a common man. They would continue to suffer a lot until the right decisions are made. When you have bad governance and that people who are called to rule a nation thinks that ruling a nation is like they will be disgraced or it is shameful for taking the opinion of the other opposite end because they consider them as oppositions. The others think like those who just want to criticize the state. Dialogue is the only way out until the government will sincerely conduct a dialogue without precondition. This one was not said by me. I believe very strongly that the U.S. Senate 1684 gave us an idea that there is a need for dialogue without precondition. In fact, the British House of Lords equally came out that there is a need for these two nations to develop and, in fact, to get into a dialogue. The House of Commons in UK recognized that there was Southern Cameroon with an internationally recognized boundary. This statement was re-echoed by the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, while Cameroon celebrates its 50 years of independence. Can we accept the realities that Cameroon wants that Boya is the capital of Southern Cameroon, and he knows that Boya was the capital of British Southern Cameroon? These are just issues which, if we take into consideration, there is no need to sacrifice the life of a single being for purposes of political egoism. I simply feel that some people are thinking that Cameroon belongs to them. But one thing which I've always been insisting, that we will pass away, but the nation Cameroon will remain. What remains in our mind is, what legacy do you have when you leave that power which you have been upholding for over 40 years? 40 years is too long a period. In English, it is equally or generally said that a fool at 40 is a fool forever. I don't think what the bedrock of the ruling party within their laboratories or within their libraries or within their content or their memory, what new aspect will they innovate? There is a need for a new blood. There is even a need for the change within the CPDM party, which is ruling Cameroon. And I believe Dr. Nick Nguyen have made a lot of progressions within the CPDM ranks, though some people will not accept that at times if a party has failed, there is a need to rethink about the party and then put Cameroonians on the rail. There is a need for the head of state, if at all. Why not? To stop this killing, we need a sincere decision from the head of state. Why not to even resign by the end of the 31st of this January so that Cameroonians can sit back together and try to make a new nation without in fact, one of the oldest leaders in the world cannot be Cameroon. This is not Cameroon. This was not Cameroon before 1982. And why these pieces of a nation that sounded united in its colors, in its diversity? What is the problem with religion? What is the problem with tribe? What is the problem with the language? These were things that have been instilled and instituted to divide Cameroonians. Today, we are fighting the same hand that was used to construct the same bad policies.
Okay, I don't know whether Paddy Asanga is online. Paddy, are you there? Seemingly, Padis may not take part in this edition of the program. But let me come back to you, Dr. Nick Nguyen. When we listen to Dr. Ako raise of these worries, these also signs and indications that there is need to fast-track the peace efforts already made in Cameroon.
Yes, there's need to fast-track these peace efforts by doing what we have to do to solve the problems. It's about truth, it's about love, it's about really facing the problem and solving it. Like I said, we heard about the Swiss talks, and I don't really know how far they are going, but it's the Swiss talks that will solve this problem in Cameroon.
Okay. Yes, but just saying that is a Swiss talk or maybe the Ghanaian talk, what are those measures that needs to be seen as taking place to get them work?
No, let's just put it this way. You know, the on another platform, someone was asking, can the church, you know, be part of solving the problems? Can this? And I was, you know, I learn a lot from nature. So we have to travel from Bamenda to Bafoussam, and unfortunately, the road is not good. It doesn't matter the good intentions that the priests and the bishops and so on have to drive their beautiful car from Bamenda to Bafoussam. It's impossible because the contractor did not do a good road. So it comes to a point where there is something that has to precede everything. You know, there's that dinner table that has to be laid out for people to come to it. And it's the government that prepares that road. It's the government that is the contractor to make that road possible for cars to drive on. So what I'm saying is that the responsibility is that of the government now to make sure that we put in place the structure for having a genuine dialogue. Then everybody will come to that dialogue and express themselves, be they the church, be they the people abroad, be they the West Cameroonians here, be they Southwesterners, Northerners, be whoever. And this time around, it's a problem between Anglophones have to talk with government. You know, when we did the major national dialogue, we went and carried everybody from everywhere and came and met a plantain malaxe, you know, just to disturb the place. And we never faced the problem. Now let me restate the problem again and the solution very clearly in very simple terms. As you would have noticed when I talk, I'm very figurative in the way I talk, so that people can understand. The Anglophone problem is this naughty elephant that we need to bring down. And there is a special gun for shooting that naughty elephant that we crafted called the Major National Dialogue. And the bullet that we were supposed to put in that gun was called the form of state. And if you shot the elephant with that, the elephant would have gone down and would have been dividing the meat now. But unfortunately, someone decided to use the bows and arrows and did the wrong thing. And that's why the elephant is still going around rampaging and doing this thing. So we have to come to a point where we agree that the biggest problem that we need to solve is the problem of the form of state, and face that problem very squarely without fear or favor and deal with it. Once we deal with it, that will be that road from Bafoussam to Bamenda to Bafoussam that we were talking about. Then everybody will be able to hold hands and say this is the best way to do it, and we'll come out of this. That is it.
Okay, that is it. Atemi Bako, you think that these proposals is just what we expect in Cameroon, but also we've not had many politicians actually come out vocal on the increasing deaths recorded in Momo, in Matazem, in Mautu, and Indian Division. Why is the political class seemingly quiet about it?
Well, let me just answer that question directly. The political party heads, to me, I look them like businessmen who have opened businesses to make profit if the opportunity is given. They are not. You cannot have a country with 353 opposition political parties. That means 353 opposition heads. That seeming to want to lead Cameroon is very confusing. So it's just an indication to tell you that not even the opposition parties are out for change.
Yeah, but should they not be concerned, worried that Cameroonians are falling? Because if everybody dies, who are you going to lead tomorrow?
Mr. Leo, they are only concerned to hold power. They are not. We have seen how many of them. Usually when they enter into power, they close the door behind. And you see, Cameroon does not function in that way whereby the people who are elected or the people who come to lead either a party or a government, they don't come to give, Mr. Leo, they come to take. That is the problem we have in Cameroon. So you cannot build a nation when everybody wants to take and nobody wants to give. We need people who can give. We need people who are going to sacrifice for their nation. We need Pan-African alternatives and not neo-alternances, not people with neo-colonial alternances who want to take. How many politicians you have seen in Cameroon, even in the government, how much billions they have embezzled? It's money that he can, in all his life, his generation to come, nobody can ever use that kind of money. They take this same money, go and bank out there. And when they bank out there, those Western countries give those same money to their citizens to come back here and go and look for contracts for diamond, for petrol, for this. With the same money you have taken and gone to bank the money out there, nobody wants to develop his own country. You take again another example, he flies out of the country, a politician flies out of the country for treatment. is he the only one with that particular sickness? Does his own countrymen also fall sick? Can you not build those facilities in your own country whereby you can go there and other countrymen can also go there, but you fly out and you come back? How do you feel when you leave your own home? It's like a man who all the time leaves his house and goes and drinks outside. It means that your home is not organized. So we need, Mr. Leo, I still come back again to say that in order for us to move together, we need to be able to understand that this country can only be built by the Cameroonians themselves. It's not going to, no international community, because every other country got their own problem, and even bigger than what Cameroon is going through. Like when I heard the US senators were talking last time, they face bigger problems in the US than what we face today in Cameroon. So we need to understand that this country is our country, and we don't need to be told on what to do when we know that we are.
But the war has been there for 5.
Mr. Leo, yes, there are pending problems, and we have seen other problems that have been in other countries for ages. So this is what we are going through here. It's not new in what is happening around the world. So let us not, because it's happening to us and not seeing what the other man is going through, and we think that we are the only person with problems. No, everybody has problems. But what I'm saying here is that it doesn't matter whether it has gone for 4 years. But the question here is, what are we doing? Because we are absolutely not doing anything. The armed separatist fighters down there are taking advantage. There are also government officials in the world that are taking advantage. People in the diaspora are also taking advantage. People who are selling arms are all taking advantage. There's huge interest. People who are selling beer, bars, they are taking advantage, because now a bottle of beer in some places that you buy for 1,000 francs, especially brasserie. So everybody, like I told you, that people in Cameroon are people who love problems and not problem solvers. When they see a problem, they begin to make businesses out of that one problem, and before you realize, one problem now has now become 20 other problems for you to solve. So we need to have that spirit of solidarity, that spirit of unison. Like I said, I still give a very good example again of Rwanda. It will take the Cameroonians themselves and not Mr. Biya to fix this country. We have seen countries, Mr. Leo, that took a different turn. Like I said, I have seen families, very poor families, where children out from that family change the destiny of that family. So change can come in Cameroon from any angle. Cameroonians must be responsible to understand that the change is going to begin from individual, from us. How we handle our daily activities, how we treat one another, how we begin to solve our own problems that we have between one another. So it's going to be a joint collective effort for us to understand that if we don't come together to solve this problem, Mr. Leo, this country, no matter what good changes that can be affected and put in place, will not solve the problem, because it's a mentality problem where you have your own citizens living in your own country like tourists. Cameroonians, to be honest, live in their country like strangers. You move in many places, you find a disorder that is created only by the Cameroonians themselves. Are you going to say who is going to take care of that? So we need to understand that a country is just like a home. A man who has a family and has to build that family and put a legacy for that family. So if Cameroon is going to work, every Cameroonian is going to take the praise that they have done a good job.
The political parties, you say they are there for their businesses, 300 and above. Now, the civil society also. We had most of the civil society guys talk somehow at the beginning of the crisis, but we don't find them anywhere. Especially with the growing killings across the nation, nobody is offering themselves up for mediation. Nobody is putting pressure either on the government or on the separatists.
Yeah, you will realize that, Mr. Leo, that the government that we have has become very ruthless.
Okay.
A government where human rights are no longer respected. Remember, journalists have been arrested. Some have been tortured to death. A lot of journalists have equally abandoned the country, Cameroon, because of their manner of reporting. Remember when people like Barrister Agbombala, at the beginning they were talking on behalf of a consortium. The consortium was not a lawyer association. The consortium, we consider them as a civil society group that was defending the interests of Southern Cameroonians. They were all bundled up, arrested, and sent to prison. And so a lot of those that were considered of a civil society ruthless base, or what I call a non-nonsense group of civil society activists, a lot of them have abandoned the struggle, and others are even minding their tongue now. When you threatened or you control the right of freedom of expression in an atmosphere where everybody is trying to suggest or give ideas on how we can quell down a situation, and that those that don't support the action of what the government is doing are considered as the evils against the nation. Remember, we are equally talking, even though we may say some political parties, we equally salute some efforts like that of Professor Moise Kamto, whom several times has made the Anglophone crisis a priority within his political agenda. And on that note, they said there was a meeting between Kamto and many separatists to buy arms and come and fight.
Yeah, but we saw separate the separatists themselves who said Kamto deceived them now.
Yeah, it is not a matter of deceit. What we are saying now is, from the time Kamto went to prison to when he came out, his non-participation in the last parliamentary elections, one of the agenda. I don't know what happened in Berlin because I was not there, but I'm telling you what I read on papers and what I listened within his presentation was that the Anglophone crisis should be made a priority, and that before any elections, we should try to find solutions, long-lasting solutions to this particular crisis. So we meet a lot of the civil society activists, some of us equally who even come here and speak every day. It's not very easy that some people even meet you on the highway and start quarreling that you are the people who are saying that Cameroon is not good. I don't know where we feel that Cameroon should not be good when we live within the same state, Cameroon. And I'm saying several times that the ideas and opinion which we share here, after real academic research and what we might have acquired, I will feel that our nation, Cameroon, should be a proud destination, not a country that people drag in and consider that they are stronger than the state. Yet Mr. Ebako made me to feel a bit, I was distressed when he said the United States has a more bigger problem than Cameroon do. And I'm telling him that the United States does not suffer from individual or institutional problems, and that the United States will hopefully and many times have found solution to its problem. Economic, politically, or socially, the United States have been at the top of even helping your own nation, which several times such opinions are given. Cameroonians promised a lot of death threats to the U.S. ambassador, who called the head of state that I believe it is time in 2018 that you should step down and maintain your legacy so that Cameroonians will keep on hailing you as one of those leaders. But I'm telling you that after 2018, he will equally confirm, the head of state himself included, that when I took power in 1982, it is not a situation. I might leave this power in 2025 or 2024 because this was not the country I took over. Tribalism had become an order of the day, bribery and corruption, where we have always passed very well. It comes to negativism. We're about organizing the African Nations Cup, one single event. After more than 40 years, we have been unable to organize. Telling you that if Cameroon could host a Nation Cup 12 years after independence, what has happened that 40 years after, we cannot organize a common continental jamboree. There are a lot of problems more than the Anglophone crisis. Yes, Dr. Nick equally make you to understand that when people gathered in Yaoundé, in what they call the major national dialogue, because the Anglophone problem was looked upon as a Cameroonian problem, and then they tried to solve the issue of Cameroonians, the Anglophone problem, which is a monster, remains. And that is why the right treatment was not given. The civil society group, a lot of people equally work from out of the country. You remember, we were part of another consultative talk. How can we initiate dialogue in Cameroon? Yes, some of us have participated in such forums. When Dr. Need mentioned of the Swiss talk, you remember that one of the pillars of the Swiss talk, why it is not going on, is the refusal on the part of the government not to negotiate with anybody. The government feels that he has the knife and the yam, and that the Swiss people are not okay with the politics in Yaoundé, which means to them that if there is any discussion in Switzerland, there is already a decision which is passed to condemn the government rather than working for a sincere neutral decision. Okay, so the government too is still, what is delaying, I'm telling you, that there is lack of a will to negotiate on the part of the government that would maybe restore lasting peace in these two regions.
Okay, Dr. Nick, he says that as civil society organizations, you mean that they have been frightened to sit quiet, but we also have not heard much from the traditional rulers, especially with this new wave of killings. Are they helpless, seemingly no urgency? In our MPs and senators, we've not heard them openly come out to condemn the killings on both sides.
Well, you know, a moment ago when I was talking, I mentioned to you about, I was making this illustration about the road from Bamenda to Bafistan. As long as that road is rugged, if you have a Mercedes-Benz, if you have a Toyota, if you have call a car any brand. So these different cars are the civil society, the funds, the politicians, the whoever. Nobody can venture on that road because the contractor has not done a job. It's only an aeroplane that can do it. All right. So when you see everybody giving up, it's because if we were using wisdom and doing what we had to do, the problem would have been solved. But we chose to use human wisdom and not divine wisdom. And we have ego problems. We just fail to understand problems and solve them and face them squarely. That is the problem. So, and then to make it worse, you remember we had a whole parliament and a whole senate. The war was going on for 4 years, and they would not entertain it. Nobody would talk about it. So you see, everybody.
But that's my worry now.
Yes, so it tells you it's about a mindset. It's about a people who think only of their stomachs. It's about a people who live in fear. It's about a people who don't stand by the truth. So when you have people like that and you are expecting them to solve a problem, it doesn't work. Because if the parliament had, if the whole nation has seen the parliament standing up, what is this thing? How can we solve it? And all ministers standing up, what is this thing? How can we solve it? Everybody kind of like, what is this thing? How can we solve it? And people genuinely looking for the solution, it would have been solved a long time ago. But what we did was, imposition arrêtée. That is, there was a problem, and then a solution came from somewhere, and the solution was put there, and then now you are driving everyone else, towards that solution, not letting people actually, look at all the options and then appropriate these things to themselves and say, yes, this is our solution. So that is the problem. So don't bother the civil societies. Civil societies are just, let's say, weak human beings like you and I, sitting out there, especially many of them in the ground zero. So you speak up your mind when something is starting, when the phenomenon of the dogs of war have not yet set in, where there seems to be where people are still reasonable and they still have their thinking caps. But when the dogs of war have set in, when the dogs are eating their masters, it doesn't matter what you say. See what happens. If you like, Monsieur Bako was saying, you see that the boys. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as long as you have something to offer. If they see you there, you are part of their meat. They no longer distinguish who is who. As long as you have bread in your pocket, as long as they can use you to boost their ego and say we caught a big fish like they did to the cardinal, they will catch you. You see, so at the end of the day, it's a confused picture, and we need to move out of this confused picture very, very quickly. Just before I give you back the microphone, just to comment on something that Dr. Ako said, to say that politics is a game of opportunists, and there is very little love in politics. And once I observed Professor Kamto a lot and very closely, and when he was gunning for his positions or his whatever, he only used the Anglophones as a shield, or he's fronting the Anglophones, but in reality, he does not love Anglophones. In reality, he doesn't want to solve the problems of Anglophones. And you can see that in some of his actions. Before he took on his trip to Canada, I was not so sure where he stood. But when he went to Canada, the way he behaved in Canada, when he was asked a question about Anglophones and what he said, I knew we were dealing with someone who was just fronting the Anglophone problem just to cover up. And then when he went down to America, he changed his language. Then coming back home, he has this shadow cabinet of his. Look at that cabinet and see how many Anglophones are in there. There are just a couple of these things. And he has been saying, okay, we need to change the electoral code. What is that thing called?
Electoral code.
Correct. And I don't take those things lightly. I meditate on them and so on. And after having meditated for a very long time, I looked very closely at the MRC. I looked very closely at the SDF. I looked very closely at Cameroun, and then I looked closely at the CPDM. Then I listened and I drew wisdom from what Bishop Nicholas Duncan from Canada said. You know Bishop Nicholas Duncan from Canada? He's a big guy. I think he's probably bigger than Dr. Ako here. And he wears white and white. You know him? Yes. And Bishop Duncan said something that makes a lot of sense. And I remember talking with some friends, and they said what Africa needs, what Cameroon needs. What Cameroon needs. It's not these 300 political parties, this one and so on. All what they are doing, it doesn't matter what Camto is telling you or SDA is telling you. All they want is CPM, get away, let us also come and eat. That's all. That's all. To say that they will solve the problem is a lie, because in reality, and I challenge all of you in the CPDM, SDF, not CPDM, SDF, MRC, whatever. Let's come to an open debate. And I would ask you economic questions, how you will solve those problems. And I'll tell you that, and I will prove to you that you have no intention to solve any problem. All you are looking for is say, okay, give me the seat, I will show you how to solve the problem. But you don't know how to solve the problem. Because if you knew how to solve the problem, you'll be showing me your own factory. You will not be talking about it. Now, that said, we have a real problem. And what we need in Africa, listen to me, Africans, and in Cameroon, democracy has failed in Africa. We might have an advanced version of it in Cameroon, but the bottom line is democracy as it is has failed in Africa. And what you also want to understand about democracy is something I also read. When I first read it the first time, it didn't make sense. The majority is not always right. You agree with me?
100%.
Yes, the majority, an uninformed majority, is not necessarily right. Just because you are in the majority doesn't mean you are right.
That's correct.
No. And that's why sometimes everybody can be doing something that is evil. You don't do an evil thing because the majority are doing it, because the majority are not right. A right thing remains a right thing, whether you are alone or whatever. So the bottom line is, it's an issue between good and evil, right and wrong. And what you need to be able to pull Cameroon and many other countries like this is not democracy. You need a kind of a leader. And it's I learned this term from Mr. Tamfo Harrison. And he says that what we need in Cameroon and most African countries, you need a benevolent despot. A benevolent despot. Who is a benevolent despot? If you take someone like the president of Chad, he has the mindset of a benevolent despot. If you take someone like Sankara, who was killed, he has the mindset of a benevolent despot.
Kagame in Rwanda.
Yes, Kagame in Rwanda, he has the mindset of a benevolent despot. Who is a benevolent despot? Number one, he is a leader with great leadership qualities. For starters, he knows what is good for his nation. He knows common good. He knows what is good. Then he does not go to his ministers and to his parliament to ask, what do you think about this? He says, okay, I'm going to build a beautiful road from Yaoundé to Douala. And it's like, is it a good thing? It's a good thing. He says, okay, we build a road, un point entrée. It's not for discussion and so on. That is the way it's done. Should we change the educational system in Cameroon? Yes, we change it.
Okay.
That's
okay.
Sorry for taking so much time.
You're making a lot of sense.
Okay. Paddy Asanga is on standby. Paddy, you have been following the discussions so far. We've struggled severally to get to you, to no avail. We hope you are standing by. Your first reaction to the wave of killings ongoing in Cameroon.
Yes. I want to first of all starting by wishing all of you a happy new year, to my senior brother Dr. Ningwanyam, to Ebaku, and to Dr. Ako John Ako. You know, distance is separating us, but all of us have that lovely space that we call Cameroon that was legated to us by Ndetumaza Abemukong and the UPCists, who were those people who really found out that we had to avoid what we are in today. So I want to congratulate you, Leo, for all the merits that you had prior to the end of the year, for your intellectual honesty and your journalistic prowesses. So, Dr. Nyingwayam, Happy New Year. Ebako, Happy New Year. Dr. John Ako, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
So, yes. So that's just to plant the decoration to let you guys know that we are very distant, but we are here as privileged slaves, and we are here as somebody like myself. I call myself the collector of the colonial debts, because I have nothing to do than send everything that I have back home to help my family, because I never asked the white boys to come and colonize us. So talking about the killings that happened, it is something regrettable, but unfortunately, we have a government that has not put anything in place for that to stop. But we Cameroonians and we people who think differently as those who are in power should start doing our homework and make sure that things are put in place. So it's a very, very sad situation, unless you want to get into the corridors and ask me what I know about the killings and what I don't know about the killings. But as far as my feelings are concerned, or what I think about the killings, I think it is something that was not supposed to happen. It was supposed to be prevented and should have never happened, because you have to understand that we spend our time talking about America, talking about France, we're talking about US, Britain, and so on and so forth, but there is no white boy dying on the field. When the white boy, they want to stage their proxy wars, they use black boys, give them arms. As Frederic de Klerk said, if you give the black boy an independence or capacity to the means to rule himself, he will become tribalistic, he will pick the guns and shoot his own, and then nothing would happen. So their mind is still, they still have a very primitive mind. So I think that's where we find ourselves, and it's very regrettable, whether it's the military dying or it is Amber Boys dying. I have always said it, and you know my hashtag, all life matters and justice for all the victims. So that's where we stand. We have people like myself who sit here in the diaspora, and they want to aggrandize themselves like those who are sitting in a 2D, pretending that they are working for the interest of the common man. No, they are not working for the interest of the common man. They are working for the interest of their progenies. They want to plant an hegemony. They want to propagate a certain system that will keep them in power and make them relevant for as long as it takes, until the people of Cameroon will rise up and say, okay, it is over, and then it will happen like in Egypt, like in other places that has happened, where dictators, or I don't know, my senior brother used a certain word, he said, benevolent despot. So I don't know if Mr. Biya, who is supporting, is a benevolent despot or not. And he talks of a confederation. I don't know if Mr. Biya is in favor of a confederation as a benevolent despot, whereas we also already understand that Mr. Biya believes in the hyper-centralized system of government that was legated to us by the French Third Republic, or I don't know, the French Constitution, and that is what we have in several countries in Africa today. So, Leo, put your questions very precise. I know you are very meticulous in the way you do things, so that I don't start telling you people what I think, but I respond to your question. Thank you.
Recently, there was a resolution from the U.S. Senate condemning what is happening in Cameroon, calling on warring factions to get to table and find a possibility to negotiate an end to the ongoing conflicts in a reconciliatory mood. But many persons are asking why the international community seemingly always condemns. Sure, they are going to come out in the days ahead to condemn what happened in Mautu and maybe Matazem and in Momo division. Do you think the international community is also playing some games with respect to what is happening in Cameroon?
Leo, that was a very brilliant question, and I am happy that you, as a very brilliant journalist, you are asking that question to somebody like myself. That you want to understand that all these resolutions don't mean a thing. they actually don't mean a thing, because when they have their interests and if they want to make things happen, they will do it. They will go and take out people like Gbagbo. They will go and take out people like Gaddafi. They will go and support marches in places like Egypt. But when they have somebody who protects their interests, they would not say a thing. So, the thing is, there is a risk. There is a risk as far as Cameroon is concerned, because Cameroon is the port, is the gateway of the Gulf of Guinea, and they have not found a formula how to deal with that situation, because there are what we call a fire tensions or fire heads in that Gulf of Guinea that involves Chad, that involves Central Africa, that involves Gabon, that involves Equatorial Guinea, and then you also have the Northwest and Southwest region, which is burning, and Nigeria had already given a signal and telling them that no, we are not going to do another fire head in Nigeria by accepting what they so-called Amazonia, and that's why you understand they picked up Ayuk Tabe and his group and sent them back to Cameroon. So those are that is the reality that we are living, and we should not be lying to ourselves. But now, coming back to what we as Cameroonians, Anglophone and Francophone should be doing, we should be able to tell our people the truth, because one thing that is happening is that I have never been part of Mr. Biya's government, and that anger, that vexation is still in me, and I was never part of Mr. Ayuk Tabe's government, or Ayuk, they call him Ayabacho or Chris Ano, and all those people who sit in the diaspora and vocify like me. You want to understand that, Leo, I have been telling you that there are many communities who have different problems. So the Anglophone problems has to go through an introspective analysis and questioning of the various communities and know what their problems are. I sent you an audio about the people from the Mbororo community, and you heard their doleances. They said they were being marginalized by Amba boys. But when you go to the Southwest region, they'll tell you that they are being marginalized by the people from the Northwest and Southwest region. I have never marginalized somebody from the Southwest region. I remain a very proud Abakwa boy, strong, tall, and saying everything that I say, and I'm ready to pay for that price. So we have to sit down, and as Anglophones, I'm not talking about what Ebako is trying to sell to you, not telling you that this benevolent despot that Dr. Ningwanyan, because that is an intellectual concept that they want to sell to our people. And the problem that we have today is that most of our intellectuals have been politically very dishonest, and as you can hear them, they'll come out with several concepts, and they came out with the concept of Tontina and Sardina, divided the Francophones, and now they want to come out with a different concept to divide the Anglophones. It doesn't work like that. We have to sit here and tell our people the truth, Mr. Leo, and those of you young journalists who are coming up, potential leaders of tomorrow at the home front, you should take that mantle and tell our people the truth, and stop telling our people, speeding lies and aggrandizing people, giving them false hope. There is no way that the CPDM will accept a confederation, no. And that confederation has no base, because the base of our living together was a federation, and the only thing that you can restore is the federation that existed in the spirit of our forebear. Remember, Roland Moumier and his group, they said reunification avant l'indépendance, and that is the same spirit that Nde Tumaza carried. But those people who had that spirit to bring all Cameroonians together, they were never given independence, and I'm very afraid that if we continue in this light, people who want peace to come back to Cameroon, they would inherit chaos, and they will be eliminated after people who come and sit here, lie, aggrandize themselves, would take power again. So the same mistakes can produce the same effect. So we should be very careful, Mr. Leo.
Padi Asanga, for your first intervention there. We'll come back to you. Ebako and Dr. Ako John Ako, is the problem that we are facing, not this perpetual blame game. This person is wrong, this other one is wrong, I am right, and then we've spent getting to 5 years and no solution, and everybody wants to make their positions known. Almost nobody is shifting grounds.
It's a thing of interest. It's a game of interest. Just like the doctor said, it's a game of interest. You see, I remember in the Berlin conference in 1884, a meeting such like that was going to resolve the internal conflict that Europe was going through. They had been through what we are going through today. And they were able to outgrow that level by coming together and forming what we had as later on you had the United Nations, the Leagues of Nations, and then after United Nations. So you come to realize that aspect of coming together and sit together and discuss the issues that you people have been having, the things that have been causing you people to fight, kill one another. Europe has gone through that, and that was the major aspect also of the Berlin conference, whereby they had to come together to exploit the lands of Africa by agreeing to themselves on solving their own problem. So here we are, we find ourselves in that same situation today. So what we need in Africa, because the problem in Cameroon, trust you me, is not only the problem of the Anglophone, the Francophone, it's a problem whereby a member state in Africa is handicapped, and that affects the structure of Africa. So that means that Africa is not progressing. If we cannot understand that we are supposed to come up with a very strong institution that concerns with the matters of each member state and see how the African head of states and the African elites can come together and resolve many of these kind of problems we are having today, because the problem we are talking today in Cameroon here, we seem to be only handling it as Cameroonians. But what I saw in the Berlin conference was different. A body came together and said, all right, how are we going to do to fix all the problems in Europe? The Leagues of Nations, all the nations that were part of the Leagues of Nations, how do we solve all this internal conflict? And that is where Cameroon and Africa is supposed to go to. Today we have another a civil conflict in Ethiopia. We had another one in Central Africa. We have almost everywhere in Africa, we have almost a similar situation that we are talking today. But the question here is, who comes as and how do we build a structure, organization, institutions that are able to manage the affairs that happens within the member states of Africa, like what is happening today in Cameroon? And that is whereby we began suggesting long ago that at the level of the UN National Security Council, they should have given Africa 2 permanent seats, because that is, you realize that the situations that we are facing, Mr. Leo, in Cameroon are situations that is very common in Africa today. We are not only talking about Cameroon. Look all around Africa. I just cited you Ethiopia, Central Africa, which was of late, about 3 weeks ago, they had their presidential election. So how do we do? Because you cannot have a problem whereby you are in a body. We have the body of the AU, we have another body in the Central Africa, we have the ECOWAS. How do we come together and manage the conflicts that we have? How do we resolve this colonial heritage conflicts that we are having? How do we handle all of these things? So that is where I come to I come to say that in response to your question, that it's difficult, because when you have children without parents or without heads or without elders to lead them where to go to, everybody fights for their own interest. And that is exactly where we are today, that this issue has been pending around only because we seem to be living in our own country like foreigners. Africa today is a product of Europe. I mean, we are all almost being westernized, whereby we feel that the only time you are living, or the only place where you should have a future, is when you travel out of your country. So your country does no longer become a priority for you to build, whereby when you see your brother falling, you want to seize the advantage for him being down and not for you raising him up. So that mentality is really a mentality problem, and that is where it goes way back to the colonial heritage. And that's why I'm saying, Mr. Leo, that we as Cameroonians, being part of the body of Africa, we need stronger institutions. We need institutions that are going to resolve such conflicts that we have, whereby we can resolve our own problems We don't need to be calling Swiss. We don't need to be calling America, who is one of the not even one of the highest indebted country in the world, owing China about $1.3 trillion. So we don't need to have, how many European countries have problems and they come to Africa to come and hold meeting to resolve the problem? They don't have none. So it's a shameful thing to see Cameroonians calling on Swiss or calling on the United States or the UN to come and resolve their own crisis. What institutions can we build in Africa like we saw in the Berlin Conference in 1884? What do? We don't have those kind of conference. How many times do AU come together and call all the member states presidents to come together and say, okay, let's sit down and see how we can build one Africa. Okay. That resistance has always been so, Mr. Leo. It's difficult as long as we still having that mentality of assimilation, and that is where the core of the problem is.
Okay.
On both sides.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Even though Mr. Ibako has some good points to raise, must he always be there? Our Mambu writing from Bafut. Mambu, it's not easy to have people come and talk. If you can talk, I'll be very, very happy to have you join the panel. Mr. Kum, Lambo Zakari from Melon. When the separatist leaders are on the fact that they can only go to the table to negotiate their departure, then what is the reason for the Swiss talk or another dialogue? Good evening to you. Zakari watching us from Melon. Mr. Liu, when a fight stays for long, it attracts the attention of neighbors. This thing has stayed. So I think some good neighbors should come in. Pastor Bache is writing from Kumba. Good evening to you, Pastor Bache. This one says, Happy New Year to you, Mr. Liu. Beautiful contributions from all the panelists. Reverend Father is writing from Bomenda. Good evening to you, Father. It says, I think the problem we have is that we have a government that knows what to do, but is in denial. Okay, Hans. Good evening to you, Hans. Change in Africa lies in the hands of the leaders, not the people. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Kum, and to you all in the studio. We are much disappointed with the Anglophone problem. We are in power because we are today. It because of them. Who says there is no Anglophone problem, but today they are the ones rushing now to give humanitarian gifts. On to date, some of them don't want this crisis to come to an end. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Kum, Leonard, and to you all in the studio. Special greetings to Dr. Nick and Jonako. Your program is always wonderful. If we had people like Dr. Nick, things would be different. Okay. Mohammed is writing from Casablanca in Morocco. Good evening to you, Mohammed. Good evening to you all in the studio. I'm Luis from Yaoundé. The government has failed to solve the Anglophone crisis. The only option is to keep praying for God's intervention. This one says, good evening, Mr. Liu. This is Justice Langang from Edea answering the question of Dr. Nick. Cameroonians are good at critical analysis with a lot of talking. Professors who can't produce any product to solve a need. Good evening to you. Okay. Good evening, panelists. Okay. Timien Mako is writing from K-Town. Okay. This one. Esther from Yaoundé says, good evening, Mr. Liu, and to everyone in the house. Mr. Liu, we should forget about the past and come together as one. Let peace reign. Esther, good evening to you, writing from Yaoundé. I am John, writing from America. It says, hi, Mr. Leonard, ask Mr. Dr. Nick, between the Bamenda people and Bamileke people who started living in the Southwest first. First, from my research under British Cameroon, there were little or no Northwesterners in the Southwest, particularly in Kmer and Fako, but the Bassa, the Bamilikes were there. In practical, it's around 1970 when the Northwesterners started coming to the Southwest. Okay. This one says, good evening. Say I thank my elder brother, Dr. Nick, for telling us the realities. We need people who should tell us the truth. That is Brinda Pius, writing from Douala here. Okay, I got you 5 on 5. Alois, writing from the United States of America. Alois, I got your point. Hello, Mr. Liu. I'm Kadiri from Greek Island. Okay, good evening to you, Kadiri. Now, I want you to answer what I asked him previously. Everybody is blaming everybody as far as the Anglophone problem is concerned. Isn't it time for us to bury our hatchets like some of the televiewers are saying, especially Esther, who is writing from Yaoundé? She says that we are tired. We should start looking for the solutions to the problems.
No, the government will tell you that they have been looking for solutions right from the very first day. Mm-hmm. That is why they were negotiating or talking with a consortium. And every Cameroonian, those of us who are on TV platforms every evening, from the very beginning, we have been making proposals and recommendations. If there is somebody thinking we have not been talking of solutions, then we have never ended a TV program without making solutions. But what we are saying now is that time and again, there is an aspect of giving an identity to the international community. Because I will tell you that there were at times when we kill, when those who kill, they have information to communicate or pass a message to the world. If you look at how the Kumba killing was mediatized, the way in which they presented the facts in Kumba, it's like it is the lone killing that took place during this 4 years period. If you go to what happened in Menka, Menka somewhere around Santa, there was equally an event. What happened in Batibo, there was equally the killing of Moyuka. There is an aspect which is even several times manifested by the various actors that are involved in the struggle to give the world an image that something is going on. But we have said, and I will keep on insisting, that it is written in the preamble of the Cameroon Constitution that justice shall be rendered in the name of the people of Cameroon. They did not mention an individual's name, which means that Cameroonians, where they are aware of what they are supposed to do, and they are equally knowing, like when you say it, that what is killing us is that we know the solution to the problem, but people are failing to take the solution because maybe such solutions are coming from the camp they don't support. And even when it is coming from those who support them, they try to decorate it. And sometimes I'm telling you that there is even no problem. How do you solve a problem which you have refused that the problem does not exist? In fact, if there is a mathematical problem, the student must understand, first of all, that in mathematics, there was a problem before providing the solution to that particular problem. But if you refuse it at the beginning, that it doesn't exist, and now you're looking for solutions, what solutions are you looking for? The government has equally been telling us that they have surely exhausted their limit. That is why members of the consortium were arrested, that they were looking for something out of what they could not offer. And what the government thought of offering later was to arrest these people, lock them up, then put arms throughout southern Cameroon. I will equally tell you that to increase that, we are just told that a lot of military presence this particular yesterday and today in the Fako division, owing that the African Youth Championship, championship, is going to start in some few days ahead. We can imagine who bears the burden of this particular financial burden, which is going to entangle with military being out on the streets for these days within this same region. This is not the Cameroon that we admire, that when football, which most often the head of state use it as a factor of unity, instead act as an instrument of division, then the country is really getting down its ruins. And there is a need instead for us to rethink what solution to offer to it within this particular period for us to have peace. At the same time, I'm saying a week before the event, at about 17 kilometers from where some of the matches will be taking place, civilians were killed. Is that the solution? Military presence? Are there no military in the southwest region? Is there no military base in Moyuka? Is there no military base somewhere closer to the area where these particular civilians were killed? Is that the solution to the problem? And I would say that the FARC rebel crisis in Colombia took 50 years, but the government ended up ended up negotiating with the rebels, and today we are not talking about Colombia again. There is no TV program that is tilted towards Colombia, and so we are talking Cameroon. Yes, we'd like to come back towards the solution Sebako gave, that we don't need an international organization to solve a Cameroonian problem. I will equally accept that Dr. Nick talked of despots, and we mean leaders who know what the nation wants and what they can do for the nation. This is what is lacking in Cameroon. Yet we sing a lot. That is what happens with the CBN. We came out from greater achievement to great ambitions. Today, I don't know whether it's greater realization. And in all, we have Horizon de Mitranseng. When a country is about to emerge, what has been the plans? Has electricity been stable? Do we have good drinking water? I mean, just these two basic commodities, which in other nations is considered to be free. One of the problems which Cameroonians are having, let me come to it, is that a lot of basic issues which are supposed to come to Cameroonians end up within the bigger boys. I mean, those who control the government for 60 years. Some people have been in government. Retirement is not part of them. But at the same time, we see the same government signing retirement letters to others, and those who are even older than the one going on retirement. It is again very funny. This is not the type of nation we wish to have. If you need to resolve Southern Cameroonian problem, we have said, and many people are saying it, where is the fear? Going back to 1961, bring out the 1961 constitution as was written and telling us that we start from here. If there would be a problem, then Cameroonians will agree that it was just above the 1961 constitution, not any other issue.
Hello, Mr. Liu and Leonard panelists. I'm quite, in my quiet moment, I ponder on the fate of Cameroon. Seemingly, the current political class has no plan for the nation. The technocrats of this nation have been just compromised by fear and dishonesty. The killings will get worse as bad leadership continues. So much hate and distrust are Collins. Writing from Kupi Mwanenguba. Good evening to you, Collins. Good evening, Mr. Liu and co. Just to clarify, Mr. Paddy, that the Amber Boys are targeting the Mbororo people and killing them for no reason. They said Fulani people have nothing to beg from them, therefore marginalization is not the right word for it, but genocide. But the fact federation being the best solution to this crisis, I am with him. Okay, Mohamadu is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, my friend, Mohamadu from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, sirs. I'm real boy from Douala. We Africans, we need unity. That's why I thought wise to bring up a song titled United Africa. If we are united, no country will exploit us, no control us. We have a long way to go, which is our way to unity. So let's all Africans stand for unity and end the Anglophone crisis. Thank you. Hi, it's Achuo Doris from Loom. I wish to say we need to be more prayerful, for only God can help us. Achuo, good evening to you. My sister, I'm Kizito from Boya. Cameroon will not be destroyed by those doing evil, but by those who support the said evil and do nothing. Okay, thank you. Stop calling, please. When you call, it disrupts. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Love your outfits today, but the network won't allow me enjoy the program. Sorry. Network is actually disturbing. Greetings, I'm Luis from Yaoundé. Foreign bodies can't solve this problem. The untouchable needs to be touched for this problem to get finished. Politicians are feeding their stomach, not handling the issue at hand. Good evening to you, Luis, writing from Yaoundé. Dr. Nick Ngwanyam, African leaders themselves, we've not heard them talk about this. We saw African leaders comment when the George Floyd incident happened in the United States. No, just one person was concerned. We saw African leaders actually come out to condemn it, but people are dying in Momo Division, not one, not two, not three. People have died in Matazem, not one, not two. People have died in Mautu. Yesterday, almost 10 of them. The fingers of persons have been chopped off in Indian Division. An estate manager was killed in Indian Division. No African leader seems to be conscious of the fact that killings are happening in Cameroon.
Well, if If you look at the current killings going on in Cameroon, they happen in almost all African countries.
Okay.
All right.
They are also concerned.
Yeah. So the African countries are just as dirty. Then they have their own dirt. But the thing is, you know, because America gives the lessons. America is the teacher. America gives the lessons. So when America does the same thing that Africa does, then we now wake up and say, hey, you told us the other day this was wrong. How comes you are doing this? I mean, you understand? It was not, I think the outrage was not really about Floyd. They were only pointing the American government, President Donald Trump, you know, the one who called them shithole countries. I don't know whether he ever used that word, but the one who looks down on everybody. It's like, hey, you seem to know what to do, but see what's happening in your backyard. And even with that, you don't seem to be concerned, because of course you have to remember that the way President Donald Trump reacted to that incident, you know, it kept me a little bit worried too, because, you know, I had always thought that he was God fearing and he was a Christian, and then he was pro-life. But you cannot be so Christian about abortions, and so you're vocal about abortions. They are not good. Fine, that's great. You support the churches. Okay, that's great. And you cannot be pro-life when it concerns babies, and when it comes to blacks being killed, you don't know about pro-life. So that's somebody who is divided, and someone who has a divided mind saying the same thing with a split mind, you are a liar. So and then, you know, it's the bubble has just blown in his face now, you know, because you're not consistent. That is what the Africans were going for, to say, look, you seem to be giving us lessons, but there's something about you that we are not so sure about. And, you know, with these elections that have come out, I'm sure we're going to see worse things happening in Africa, because every African president will be stealing elections and doing whatever they wish to do, knowing that there's no one to talk back to them.
Padi Asanga, we are running out of time, but I want to find out from you that are we also not able to sort out what is happening in Cameroon, especially with respects to the ongoing crisis in the southwest and northwest regions, because core conflicts resolution experts have not been given the opportunity to engage in finding lasting solutions to this?
I think that is the greatest question of the day, and I'm very happy that you sample your panelists and you know their angle of reflection, and I will say this, and I will say it very, very unequivocally. They said the unity of, somebody just said on your panel, and I was reading through the comments, somebody just said on your panel that the unity of the Anglophones would bring about the solution of the Anglophone problems. So, and you want to understand where we are coming from and where we are today, because we had Justice Ayapol, with whom I don't agree with his changing positions. You had the Cardinal Tumi, and you had people like John Fundi, Kawala, and all those Anglophone voices who thought that Anglophones should sit together to come out with a legitimate leadership. Some people who have weight, who have that locus standing to carry along the Anglophone problem. And I don't think that where we are today, we are getting to that position, because people like myself who are not very concerned, I'm sitting here in Hamburg. I cannot tell you exactly the problem that somebody has in Gokutunja, but I want to give injunctions to the people in Gokutunja. And I think that we are in this fix because people refuse the intra-Anglophone dialogue. I think many of your panelists have said it, that people who refuse the intra-Anglophone dialogue, they were not only members of the CPDM or Southwest region, as my brother Ebako is saying. It is people like Kmer Patrick of, may he so rest in peace, and Atangan Jipol. I have that inside knowledge because I'm privy to certain information. So where we stand today, there is no way we should be taking injunctions from white boys. Look at what happened to Trump administration. Just imagine when Cardinal Toomey, John Fundi, and those other people were saying that, no, we should sit amongst us ourselves, Cameroonians, to resolve the problem. So what are the examples that we are getting from the white boys? What are the examples that we are getting from Trump protesters? I am not a partisan of the fact that we should be having people in the dungeons of Kondingi and Fu, Boya prison, Bamenda Central Prison, because those are no places for any human being. But I am one of those people who think that all shades of opinion, without castigating, without calling names, without calling somebody black legs, red legs, green legs. You have Justice Ayapol on the other hand. You have Agbobala on the other hand. You have our brilliant Dr. Ngwanyam sitting here talking of something else, but aligning to the CPDM. You have Ebako, and then you have radicals like myself and John Ako, who think that we have to go back and revisit the Constitution of 1961. So all these shades of opinions have to be there, but it has to be in honesty, because the honest historical fact is that there was West Cameroon, Southern Cameroon, which joined La République du Cameroun, and we become the United Republic of Cameroon, or the Federal Republic of Cameroon. So that intra-Anglophone dialogue should be, because Ambazonia is not gazetted and nobody mandated somebody to sit in the diaspora, send people to come and behead you, Leo, behead Ako, behead Ngwanyam, or behead Ebako, to say that if you don't support me, your name is death. It doesn't work like that. And I maintain that position as one of those principal actors who have been here in the diaspora. I stand with everybody who still thinks that Anglophones should sit together and come out with legitimate leadership, not with people like myself with dubious credentials, dubious background, fake pastors, ordained by nobody, and talking about Odeshi and then talking about the white boys' religion, which is Jesus. You want to understand why I'm using those words? Because I'm not a Christian. So, Leo, you people should take what we are saying here in the diaspora, because there is always a lone voice in the forest which is crying loud and telling the truth, and only the truth shall set us free. Thank you.
Very much, Paddy Asanga. Seemingly what he's saying has received the blessings of almost everybody here in the studio. Yes, you have just 1 minute because we're out of time.
Okay, Mr. Leo, I just want to add to what Paddy Asanga was saying. You see, we cannot want to resolve an Anglophone problem or a problem which concerns the people of Cameroon, and we are applying a Western system. You see, democracy has always been that the majority seem to have the say, but you come to realize that it's only in democracy where the majority has always been telling the lies. The majority has not always stood for the truth, which simply means that democracy is a minority that rules the majority. And that is why we have insisted that in a country like such as Cameroon and in Africa, we need to have seats at the UN National Security Council, because at that level, Mr. Leo, the African continent is being marginalized. And Africans need to understand that we cannot be part of the body of the United Nations and we don't have any representative at that level.
Okay.
So that is where the core problem from the 1960 to 1961, that's where it's all coming from.
Okay. Yes.
That's where it's all coming from.
Okay, Dr. Ako, John Ako. Definitely we need an end to the killings. We don't know what may happen tomorrow.
Yeah, the end, if we have to end the killings in the northwest and the southwest region, we need to be sincere to ourselves. I mean, Paddy ended very well. That honesty can set us free. There was something Dr. Nick Guanyan said. There is this principle of Otto Canfren, one of the guys who stood for the fact that if it is true, it is true. If it is a lie, it is a lie. And it doesn't matter how many people are against you, and that the truth remains the truth. This is what we need in Cameroon. I have not seen a government where people are promoted because of lies telling than any other government than the government of Cameroon. So when you tell lies, that's when people appoint you. You can head the situation of Patrice Kmer, one of the most controversial mayors we have had in southern Cameroon, and we just pray that a group of such people should stop existing. A lot of them were appointed after that incident. We need to be sincerely talking to Cameroonians what Cameroon is supposed to know.
Okay.
People might have criticized the American election. I'm telling you that the institutions will reign. Can we allow institutions to do their job?
Okay.
Dr. Nick said here, please, just 1 minute. I am just begging. Because the U.S. Senate could not pass a resolution on Cameroon. The British House of Lords passed a decision on Cameroon. The Cameroonian Senate has no resolution for 4 years on Cameroon.
Okay,
it's not normal.
Yes, I'm sure late Kmer Patrick Esunge was not appointed. He won an election and was mayor of Boya. And when you see people like him should not exist, I'm sure he was loved by his wife and children and his family and many others who love him. So they will pray that he continues existing. Yes.
Yeah, just
Dr.
to,
Nick,
you know, Padi Asanga was saying quite some stuff, but when he says that he's not a Christian and then he makes fun of Jesus, I just want to correct that. I don't want people to carry that away. And if we are messing up, it's because in Cameroon, in Africa, and even in America, what America is going through is because they have rejected God. You know, you remember the Tower of Babel. When you reject God, foolishness would enter your house. And therefore, what we need in Cameroon, we need divine wisdom. We have been ruling Cameroon now with human wisdom. What we need is divine wisdom. And when you're talking about divine wisdom, you mean is God-centered. And we know that God is love, God is life, God is truth, God is soul, God is spirit, God is infinite intelligence, and God is principle. If we stick to these things, we'll solve the problem. But we keep telling lies as we've been doing now, we are going nowhere.
Thank you to you, Desmond, to you, Christian, and to you, Bertrand and Noel, who have produced this edition of the program. And to you, Tabi Tambe Bryant, we say thank you to you. And to the wonderful panel. Padi Asanga, thank you. We hope that next time the connections are going to be better so that we participate also better. And we tomorrow are going to be looking at the public investment budget for Cameroon, knowing that one division in Cameroon in the south region, Ja Elobo, a division is allocated 68 billion francs CFA. That is a division where we know that the entire littoral region is allocated 63 point something billion. We're going to find out how a division in a country is allocated more budget than almost all the regions in the country. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.